Okay, you're back. So now that you're done getting ready, it's time to get set. So give me just a couple of minutes to show you what you'll need to do, and then you'll be able to go ahead and get set on your own. Let's start by making the meatballs. To make the meatballs, you're going to measure the following ingredients into your large bowl. 1 pound of ground beef, half a pound of ground pork, half a cup of dried breadcrumbs, half a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, 1 egg, 2 teaspoons basil, 1 tablespoon salt, and half a cup of milk. Then you're going to mix that all together using your hands, so make sure your hands are good and clean before you start mixing. Then just dig in. If you don't want to use your hands, a wooden spoon will work, but sometimes your hands are the best tool in the kitchen. You want to keep mixing just until all the ingredients are combined. If you handle the mixture too much, the meatballs will be tough and dry. So no matter how much fun you're having, stop mixing as soon as everything is thoroughly combined, and then you can start making the meatballs. To make the meatballs, just grab a small amount of the mixture and then gently roll it around between the palms of your hands to form it into a nice round ball about the size of a golf ball. When you're rolling your meatballs, it's important to make them all the same size so they'll all get done at the same time. If they're different sizes, either the bigger ones will be undercooked or the smaller ones will be overcooked. Let me show you what I mean. If you make some meatballs the size of a golf ball, like this, and some meatballs really big, like say the size of a baseball, like this, the small ones are going to get done way before the big ones. So keep that in mind when you're shaping the meatballs. You can make them any size you want, as long as they are all the same size. And remember, the bigger you make them, the longer they will take to cook. Arrange the meatballs on the baking pan so that there's a little space between them so they will cook evenly on all sides. When you're done rolling the meatballs, set the tray aside, and then before doing anything else, you need to wash your hands really well with warm, soapy water, because raw meat can contain bacteria that can be very harmful, and if you don't wash your hands, you can spread the bacteria to everything else you touch. After you've washed your hands, you can dice up the tomatoes. Before you start chopping the tomatoes, you'll need to remove the core using your paring knife. This is something you might want your sous chef to help you with because knives can be dangerous and you want to be sure you know what you're doing. So let me show you how to use your knife safely. To core the tomato, you're going to hold it in one hand like this, with your fingers away from the stem. Then insert your paring knife into the tomato, just outside the core and at an angle like this, pointing towards the middle. Then, move your knife up and down, turning the tomato as you go, cutting just around the stem. Keep turning the tomato until you've cut a nice full circle around the stem. Then you can just pluck the core out with the end of your knife like this. Let me show you again. Hold the tomato steady with one hand, insert the knife at an angle just outside the stem, then move the knife up and down while you turn the tomato all the way around. Then pop the core out with your knife. Once the tomato is cored, you'll use your chef's knife to slice the tomato in half from top to bottom. Then slice each half into thin slices about a ½ inch wide. After you've made the slices this way, turn them 90 degrees and chop them in the opposite direction. After that, run your knife randomly through the pieces, chopping in all different directions to dice the tomatoes into even smaller pieces. Because you're using them in a sauce, you want the pieces as small as possible, so your sauce won't be too chunky. When you're done, transfer the diced tomatoes to the bowl. This is when these flexible cutting boards come in handy, because you can just pick it up and slide all the tomatoes into the bowl like this. Wipe the cutting board off with a damp cloth, and then you can use it again to chop the onions. And that's it for the Get Set part of the recipe. Now I just showed you how to do a lot of things, so be sure to use the buttons on the Get Set menu if you want to watch any of the steps I showed you one more time. Otherwise, go ahead and get set, following the directions in your book on pages 64 and 65. When you're all done, click Continue on the Get Set menu and we'll be ready to get cooking.